The story begins on a metro train, where a gangster named James is talking to someone on the phone. At the same time, the story's main character, Johanna, is keeping an eye on a middle-aged man. Suddenly, the man's newspaper disappears after a woman bumps into him. Meanwhile, another person accidentally bumps into Johanna as they leave the station. Although none of these people know each other, they all get off at the same station. Johanna continues following the older man and eventually ends up at a restaurant. The scene then shifts to a heavyset man named Max. After that, we see James standing on top of a building, giving orders through a walkie-talkie. It turns out James has planted a bomb in a vehicle outside the building, and he detonates it. The explosion causes a fire, bringing firefighters to the scene. However, mixed in with the firefighters are several robbers who enter a bank, hold people at gunpoint, rob it, and escape. Soon, James spots the police arriving. He informs Max about their presence, and Max drives a truck directly in front of the police vehicles, creating a diversion that allows the robbers to escape from the other side. At this point, we realize that these men are professional thieves who specialize in robberies. The story then returns to Johanna and the older man. After watching her for some time, the man approaches Johanna and says, "I've noticed that you've been following me. You were watching me yesterday, on the metro today, and now here." Johanna claims it must be a misunderstanding and tries to leave, but the man grabs her hand and begins questioning her about details from the metro ride. He asks her a series of questions, and Johanna answers almost all of them correctly. However, she cannot answer one question: what happened to the newspaper he was holding? The man tells her that they expected better and leaves behind a piece of paper before walking away. When Johanna scratches the paper, she discovers the words "You are selected." This had been a test, and Johanna had just been recruited as a spy. The scene shifts to a dark night where the robbers are dividing their loot. One of them complains that James received a larger share of the money. The others remain silent, but James brutally beats the man and leaves with his share. Later, James visits an old shoemaker. It turns out that James learned many of his criminal skills from this man, who was once a thief himself. The shoemaker is holding James's passport and keeps assigning him jobs instead of returning it. When James demands it back, the old man gives him yet another task. Meanwhile, an intelligence team begins searching for Max, who had briefly appeared in security camera footage. Hong, the team leader, does not allow Johanna to leave the vehicle during surveillance operations. Eventually, he gives her a bathroom break. While alone, Johanna talks to herself but forgets to switch off her walkie-talkie, causing the entire team to hear her and burst into laughter. Meanwhile, James successfully completes another robbery. During the operation, he notices a photographer in a nearby building taking pictures of him. James immediately enters the building and violently attacks the photographer. On the other side, Johanna gets into a fight with several men before Hong arrives and helps her. James later returns to the shoemaker and demands his passport. The crafty old man refuses once again and instead assigns him another mission. Frustrated, James leaves. Not long afterward, a contract killer is sent after James. However, James turns the tables and kills the assassin instead. He then returns to the shoemaker and warns him that if he does not hand over the passport next time, he will kill him. The old man simply smiles and James leaves. For the next 17 days, Hong and his team continue searching for James throughout the city. During this time, Johanna, who is tired of sitting in the car all day, studies a map and comes up with an idea. She notices that Max has been spotted in 3 different parts of the city, all of which were locations of previous robberies. Johanna points out that criminals usually avoid returning to crime scenes. Therefore, she predicts that the next robbery will take place in the center of the city. Hong is impressed by her reasoning and finally allows her to participate directly in the field operation. The team begins monitoring the central district. Johanna spots someone who looks like Max and alerts the team. After confirming his identity, Hong tells her to change her appearance so Max will not recognize her. Johanna quickly changes clothes and blends into the crowd. Max enters a store, and another agent named Squirrel sneaks in through the back entrance, sees Max's face clearly and positively identifies him. Later, Johanna enters an elevator with Max. She deliberately drops some coins and uses the distraction to learn his apartment number. Afterward, Squirrel installs several hidden cameras outside Max's apartment. The team keeps him under surveillance. One day, Max throws away some trash. Johanna and Hong inspect it and discover shredded pieces of paper. After reassembling them, they realize it is actually a puzzle that had been intentionally scrambled. The next day, Hong visits the building where James attacked the photographer. After careful analysis, he concludes that someone has been using buildings across from robbery locations to monitor and coordinate the crimes. At the same time, the team discovers that the puzzle points to an IP address belonging to the city's stock exchange. This suggests the next robbery will take place there. Hidden cameras installed in the robber's apartment provide additional confirmation. As the robbers finish a meeting, Hong briefly notices James, but does not pay much attention to him. Meanwhile, James heads to a building across from the stock exchange. When he sees a strong police presence, he calls off the operation and tells his partners to retreat. As James descends the building, he realizes Hong is heading toward the rooftop. James narrowly escapes by jumping through a window. A major chase follows between the police and the robbers, ending in a crash that kills several members of the gang. Hong and Johanna continue searching for James near a bridge. Since they still do not know exactly what he looks like, Hong orders his team to call James's phone. They have already tracked his number through satellite technology. When the call comes in, James answers. However, several other people nearby also start talking on their phones, making it impossible to identify him. Realizing it is a trap, James switches off his phone and pretends to continue talking as he walks past Hong. At first, Hong does not recognize him. Then he suddenly remembers seeing the same man near the stock exchange. Realizing James is their target, Hong begins chasing him. While the pursuit continues, Johanna notices something suspicious. She finds Squirrel severely wounded after being attacked by James with a sharp object. Although Squirrel is rushed to the hospital, he does not survive. At the same time, James finally kills the shoemaker and takes back his passport. A few days later, Johanna recalls her first day on the metro. She suddenly remembers that James had bumped into someone while carrying a bag from a market. This leads her to conclude that he is a regular customer there and is likely to visit again on Sunday. Johanna goes to the market and soon spots someone who looks like James. She immediately informs Hong. James enters the market and Johanna follows him. James approaches her and asks, "Why are you following me?" Before she can answer, Hong arrives and James slips away. Moments later, James grabs a knife from a nearby table. Hong pursues him and ends up being injured during the confrontation. Despite this, Johanna continues chasing James through a heavy rainstorm. For a while, she loses sight of him, but once the rain stops, she spots him again. Meanwhile, Hong survives and is rescued by other agency members. The team continues tracking Johanna through satellite surveillance until the signal suddenly disappears. Hong quickly realizes that the only area where satellite coverage is unavailable is near the city's outer boundary. The team rushes there. Johanna finds herself completely alone when James suddenly appears and points a gun at her. Fortunately, police officers sent by the agency arrive just in time. Johanna manages to escape from James. James tries to flee by jumping over a barrier, but Hong appears and shoots him, avenging Squirrel's death. In the final scenes, Squirrel's funeral takes place. Sometime later, the team receives information about another individual connected to James, suggesting there may still be more to uncover. And with that, the story comes to an end.